Thinking Out Loud with Dave Palmer. Here on Morning Joy, where truth matters.
Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and very excited about this next segment with Dave Palmer, Thinking Out Loud, the 5 things we might not know about the angels. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Keith. Good to have great audio with you this morning. Good to be with you. And by the way, I said you might not know because I never want to assume, everybody out there has no idea what I'm about to tell, including you. I'm sure you know some of this, but it's pretty interesting. The angels are fascinating creatures.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Yeah, I'm ready for it.
Yeah, and I just want to preface it by saying, as you already mentioned, the reason the angels are on my mind, the spirit world, so to speak, is because of the event that we have 4 days from now. It's going to be here in Dallas, but everybody listening, regardless of where you are, please fly in. And of course, if you're in the North Texas area, we hope to see you Saturday at the Jesuit Terry Center, and you can go to grnonline.com/TSW Live for information and tickets. And, if you go back to St. John Paul II and his just landmark writing on theology of the body that just took the whole world by storm. I remember going to a Christopher West conference one time and just being fascinated, and we have a better understanding of our bodies. With the angels, you think, okay, yeah, we know we have bodies. We know we're spiritual creatures, but what if you were to kind of strip the body away from us and we're left only with our spiritual element? The interesting thing is we still wouldn't be angels. We'd be separated souls, and that's the definition of death is the separation of soul and body. But it really, angels highlight in that sense the importance of our bodies. And so what if, the creature like an angel that never was intended to have a body and never will have a body, even if they assume bodies, like Debbie said the other day on one of her shows, it's like putting on a costume. It's not part of their nature. So, all right. So the 5 things, I'll just kind of do a couple of them, and then I'll see if you have any comments about it, Keith. People may think, well, if you don't have a body and you're just pure spirit, you're just kind of like a mind. Are you in a place, or are you just kind of everywhere? And Aquinas says that an angel is always in a place. Okay, so an angel can't be here and there at the same time. And the way he describes it is he says they're in a corporeal place by application of their angelic power. Okay, so they contain the place where they are by virtual contact. Okay, so that's the first thing you may not know about angels, is that they are in one particular place at any given time, because, God is everywhere. God is infinite. And so, but angels are not, okay, because they're mere creatures. So that's the first thing. And then you think, well, okay, if they're in one place, do they just kind of stay in that one place all the time, or do they get to move around a little bit and kind of go here and there? And of course, as you might expect, they do move, but how does something that doesn't have a body move? And the way Aquinas explains it is he says they can all at once quit the whole place where they are, and then at the same instance apply themselves to another place. And so it's really an act of the will where they're applying themselves. So if I want to be on the other side of the room, but I don't have a body, of course we as humans would, walk, but it would still be related to our will, because we'd want to will ourselves to be over there at the other side of the room. But the angel doesn't have a body, so they just kind of think it and will it, and voila, there they are. So, okay, so there are your first 2 of 5. Do you have any questions, or did you know that already?
I think it's hard to remember, but I can just imagine all the use cases of how useful that would be to think a thought of where I want to go or want to be, and just be there in general. So that would be a fun
little exercise. Well, the cool thing is if you read all the way through the Summa until the very end, at the end of the supplement, there's a section about the condition of the resurrected body, and there's one quality of the resurrected body in heaven called agility, and it's exactly that: is that we are able to move basically by our rational power and our will, and so we don't have to walk across a room. In heaven, we can actually will ourselves to move move, and we will move. And that's another reason why I think it's interesting to study the angels, because a lot of the qualities that they have, we are going to kind of gain when we get to heaven, including the way that their knowledge works. So, which leads me to knowledge of the angels, perfectly so, is that, when we come to know things, since we have bodies and we have, rational souls, we kind of learn discursively. We learn one thing and then we learn the next and then we move on to the next, and we're kind of like building up knowledge as we go along. But with the angels, Thomas calls it, he says, the knowledge is co-natural to them. People often use the word infused. It's infused in them at the moment that they are created, and so the things that they're going to know naturally, they know the moment they're created. All right. So can you imagine with you and me, we're born and we know very little. In some case, it's like, John Locke said, the tabula rasa, the blank slate. We learn and we accumulate knowledge as we go through our life. But with the angels, they kind of already have it all, which leads to the fourth point, is that when they are judged, since they do already know what they need to know, they don't have to go through life and learn the catechism and learn this about Jesus. Since they already know it, they're able to make a decision for or against God at the moment, like in their first act of the will. They're like, imagine being born and then you're on the judgment seat already. It's like, okay, are you up for or against God, Keith? And you make a decision, and then that's your decision forever. But how does that relate to us? Well, we're going to get to a point where at the end of our life, when we're going to be judged, and it's going to be irrevocable as well. And so we kind of have this advantage of having 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years to kind of work it out, and we fall into sin, and then we go to confession, and we're kind of back and forth. But the angels don't do that. The angels don't go to confession because of the way that their mind works. So so that brings us to number 5. Anything about that you find particularly interesting? Is that has to do more with like the epistemology, the knowledge of the angels. And I have one more doozy for you before we close out the segment.
Well, I was just thinking, trying to like recover memories or just think back, learning things, and I can't remember that reference. Angels have no issue with that, and they have an incredible, exhaustive amount of information that they know. So that just kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, you're right about angels, is that things happen. Like your guardian angel doesn't know the future, and so there's going to be some kind of application of new knowledge, or because it doesn't know what you're going to have for breakfast tomorrow morning, and so your guardian angel will kind of learn that. So it's not like they're created knowing every single thing about you, but the things that we have to learn, the things that we go to school about, learning the periodic table or geography. You mentioned geography earlier this morning, that you're not great in geography. Okay, they wouldn't have to learn cities in Iowa and where Iowa is in the United States. They're going to kind of know that naturally, that kind of thing, right? All right, so are you ready for number 5?
Let's do it.
And I actually have a bonus one if you want, if time allows. Okay, so how do they speak to one another? And if you see me on YouTube, I'm doing air quotes for speak, because you can't really speak if you don't have a mouth, right? You can't, create words. So how would an angel, I guess, say, communicate its thoughts to another? Any guess, or have you ever learned this before?
I think maybe, but it sounds like telepathy.
Yeah, that's basically what it is, and it has so many implications, because it applies to us, and it also applies to the Blessed Trinity for the reasons I'll explain. Is we have, I guess, what Thomas would call the interior word, or like a concept in our mind. Like I'm thinking something right now. Let's say about my wife or my kids, and I haven't communicated it to you yet, but it's in my mind, right? So it's a concept. And then I can decide, hey, I'm going to tell Keith this thought about my wife and how beautiful and wonderful she is, right? But it was in my mind before, and then I communicated it. So an angel would have that concept in their mind, so to speak. But since they don't have words to communicate it, they just, as you kind of implied, they kind of will it to the other person. So I can kind of like will a thought to Tim, they're in the control room, and I could will it to him and not to you. And so and then they can receive it and then, will a thought back to us. And it's really fascinating. And I mentioned the Trinity is that Trinitarian theology is one of the most complicated things to understand, but one of the cool things when you talk about the relations between like the Father and the Son, perhaps, Thomas describes the Father as the principle, and he has the concept in his mind, or the interior word, is what generates the second person of the Blessed Trinity, okay? So that's why we call the second person of the Blessed Trinity the Word of God. It's the concept in the Father's mind, so to speak. And as you can imagine, the concept in the Father's mind is everything, because he knows everything, past, present, future, every contingency. And so that's the Word, and that the Word became flesh, and the Word, took on human flesh and was Jesus Christ. And so, understanding angels in that regard, in the way they communicate, helps us understand not only a little bit about ourselves, but also a little bit about the Blessed Trinity. And so it all kind of fits together because, the creatures will tell us something about the Creator. And so I think angels are absolutely fascinating. And again, if people find this kind of thing interesting, just imagine hearing it from somebody like Debbie and Adam, who are experts in their field, and coming to the event Saturday and learning from a couple of great experts about this and a whole lot more. So I'm excited about it, and it's only 4 days away, Keith.
I know, it's coming up quick. I can't even believe it. I remember just talking about it the other last month or so, and it flew by. 4 days.
It really did, especially if you're planning it and you're trying to get everything organized. We're going over the venue today to check it out, and we're gonna have a set that's going to look like an old throwback, golden age of radio kind of set. You think about like the old days of Edward R. Murrow or things like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But good to be with you, Keith. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, thank you for giving us those 5 things about angels, even if maybe we've heard of them and we haven't really thought about them in a long time. So thank you so much, Dave Palmer. We can also catch you on Back to the Father every Friday at 1 p.m. Central on our GRN Online YouTube channel. But hey, that's the end of our first hour. We'd like to thank those listening in, especially on Aquinas Communications, maybe those arriving at work, or maybe they're going to Holy Mass. Pray for us. But we've got a lot coming up on our second hour. We're talking with Father Stephen Gadberry, talking grit and grace and much more. But hey, regardless, make sure to visit grnonline.com, subscribe and follow GRN Online on YouTube, our Rumble page, our Instagram, everywhere we find us on Instagram or social medias. But hey, we'll see you right after this break.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.